What's up, glorified community? Welcome to this live edition of the Path to Glory podcast. We got Aaron Draplin in the house today, and I'm really excited about this particular podcast just because not only am I a massive fan, but a lot of you guys in the audience, of course, are too. And there's a lot of stuff to cover. I mean, there's just so many conversations I want to take this podcast through. And let's jump in and pick his mind. So firstly, every guest on the Path of Glory podcast deserves an intro. So firstly, let's jump into this intro. Aaron Draplin is an American graphic designer, author, and entrepreneur. He's the co-founder of Draplin Design Company and the co-founder and designer of the Field Notes brand. He started his career in graphic design with a snowboard graphic for solid snowboards. In 2000, he accepted the position of an art director at Snowboarder magazine, and in 2019 designed the Star Ribbon, a U.S. postal stamp. Aaron has worked with world-famous companies such as brands such as Nike, Burden Snowboards, Esquire, Red Wing, Ford Motor Company, and the Obama administration. That is insane. Aaron won the art director of the year for Pre-Media 2000, and he's been featured on TED Talks and talks at Google. It's such an honor having Mr. Thick Lines, the man behind DDC and Field Notes, on our podcast today. With that said, let's give a warm welcome to Aaron. What is going on, Aaron? How you doing?
Just, we just woke up and they're impeaching the president for the second time today. So big fun day for America. That's what's on the news. But I came out here, I'm going to get my day started, talk to the UK a little bit, and then the rest of the day I'll be working on a record, a couple logos, a website, and some other stuff. Yeah. Graphic
awesome.
art.
Just an ordinary day for you. Is this a day-to-day, what a day-to-day looks like for Aaron Draplin?
Yeah. I mean, I'm out here probably by about 10:30, but I work pretty late too. In the weird pandemic, I'm trying to be done by about 7:30, 8. And then go do things, go on a walk, ride the bike, have dinner, all the basic stuff, to kind of stay sane in this very weird, So.
That's totally cool, man. Yeah, I mean, look, there's so much I want to cover today, but let me just take a moment to say, firstly, I feel, being a fan of yours, I've got your book, and I've followed you for quite some time now. I've seen your TED Talk and everything. And I think what really sticks with me is just your edge and rawness. And honestly, for me as a designer, being, sort of living in the design space in corporate worlds, especially, a lot of people sort of cast a little designer kid in the corner, and you're sort of seen as the guy that makes things look pretty. And I think you're one of those people that helped me sort of break that mindset, because there's a lot of pretentiousness in the design space, and many times it's like an attitude, even driven by like design leaders within the industry. There's like a lot of high talk, and for me, you have this sort of consistently been able to break that mindset with just the rawness of your story. And I love that, not just for example, in your book and many public platforms, you throw up your logo collage and you say you did one of the logos for 25,000 and the other for a burrito, for example, right? And we go through these pages of this book, and you've really been yourself throughout, and the journey is really inspiring. So let's kick off the discussion with that note. The process, what I've discovered is your process has always been raw, simple, pen to paper, mouse to pixel, no fluffy talk. And I love that, and because I value strategic design, I do value strategic design thinking, frameworks, and all this high stuff, but I still believe, craft is always that comes first, right? So I'm really curious to know, because you've worked with a lot of top brands and sort of, I would maybe corporate and political, even the political world. Did you ever feel like a fish out of water, or did you, how did you have to deal with sort of the overtly high talk in the corporate environment, and how do you navigate that? Because I'm asking because I'm a bit of a creative fairy myself, and I had many challenges here.
Well, first things first. I don't really have a lot of experience dealing with corporate environments. I mean, the bigger the job doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be better. It might be a bigger paycheck, but those people are insufferable sometimes. I mean, all I can really say, and it's going to be very vague. I took a pretty big job maybe a year ago, and they dangled the hook, and I went against everything that I've kind of been on the road talking about, hold close to myself and try to exhibit in my own existence. And I took the bait. And, I worked my ass off for 2 months for these guys. And at the end of this thing, I can never talk about it. I didn't get the job. I still was paid a nice chunk for, exploring or whatever. But they didn't even call you back. And this is the thing. It's like, that wasn't about being pretentious. That was just called being an asshole, and I mean, what is the most pretentious thing? Who cares? And how do you measure that? I'm not concerned with that. Can you make a life where you work with your friends and invent yourself and invent your own stuff for your own from your own hands? Well, you can, and you have to stick your neck out every now and again to make sure that those sort of machines are running, sort of ethically and the right way and stuff. But when I do go roll up my sleeves, listen, I'm not going to try to outwit somebody on a phone call, and I'm not going to try to, out Zoom someone on a Zoom call. It's like with what? Some bigger, I don't even know, some talk of notions and talk like, listen, you hired me, I'm going to get the job done, and I hope you dig it, and I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to exhibit hopefully good solutions, and kill them with kindness, kill them with being on time, kill them with, having good, clean, concise emails and, not just typing back LOL or ha or some shit. No, actually, putting, Omar and, all the names of all the people that helped me with this, get this thing set up, and saying thank you, kind of old fashioned shit like saying thank you. And hey, here's the link, not sending some, 65 megabyte file over your Google or whatever. No, you send a Dropbox link. So, that stuff quickly dispels when they see that they can just talk to me, but I mean, just to be completely clear, even in the big stuff that you mentioned, I was a tiny little ant, and, these lead-ins and these descriptions of me, which by the way, thank you for saying nice things, are very misleading because when I worked for Mr. Obama, man, I am one grain of sand on this big beach. You know what I mean? And let's just be really clear about that. The way this stuff gets away from you, I would rather say, I was the design thinker and maker behind Cobra Dogs. Because really, what that is? That's me and my asshole buddy figuring out his food cart graphic, and I love him. And that's all. There's no money involved. And it's okay. So, okay. I've been in the situations where, it gets a little fluffy. And it's because they're trying to make up for shitty design, usually, or some kind of power structure with whatever you're talking to. And all you got to do is just watch and just, kind of keep your eyes open and watch how that stuff kind of plays out. I'm just not interested in that, So I think just for credit, where credit's due, I don't think it's as pretentious as people think it is. There are those places, hey, you want to go work for that shit? Go work for it. Cool clothes and all this kind of stuff. Go do it. Or you can work in your backyard and be comfortable and, still get a paycheck, and here we are in this time now where I've been doing this for a lot of years, and yet that's the only thing we can do, which is kind of weird, So, but hey, on a Zoom call, I try to be, if I'm working for you, Omar, I try to be a nice person, and listen and take notes and then do my job when you ask me to do my job, If it's the other way around, it's very simple, I'm easy to work with, I would hope, Like I'm working with a web developer right now, and we just have a really loose quality where he's like, I'm just busy today. And it's like, all right, we'll see you tomorrow. I'm not going to hold a knife to his throat and say, you told me we'd get it done today,
Yeah.
And this and that. I just like the idea of being able to be loose sometimes too.
Yeah.
You know?
I guess it comes from a place like, you want to treat others how you want to be treated, which makes sense. And it just takes less effort and it's much easier, right? And if you
I mean,
develop a flow with that,
I'll be the first to say in a conversation, hey, this is a little over my head,
yeah.
be it, some sort of high-minded design or whatever you want to call that. If I don't
Yeah.
quite understand what they're talking about, I kind of stop someone and say, hey, what are you guys talking about? Whatever I
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
If they're coming to me and saying, make this T-shirt graphic, make this logo, I mean, they're coming to me because they know that I've done a bunch of those things.
Yeah.
So we kind of know what we're discussing.
Of
There
course.
have been moments though, where it's like I don't even know. People start using acronyms and business terms, and I don't even know what they're talking about. And then that's when you just kind of keep your mouth shut and just kind of roll through it. In
Yeah.
the end, they're just filling time anyway. Or something on some
Right.
call.
I've got another question for you coming up. Although Aaron, I just want to take a quick moment. Your mic feels a little bit fuzzy in the ears. Is there anything is there like a loose connection there?
No, I thought you said it sounded good.
Yeah, it sounded good for the most part, and just a very momentarily, it was a little bit crackly.
I'm just using it off this, like you guys told me, off the old monitor. So
Right. Okay, that's totally cool. I think it kind of comes and goes, but overall it's very audible, so that's good. It's just a little bit of a
should I try
crack.
switching it to
Um. Okay.
another?
Yeah. Something happened there, which was interesting.
Well, I mean, I just muted it. So let me see here. These
Okay.
goddamn apps. Every one of them is different. You don't know where the stuff's
Yeah.
at. Let me see here. This is inside something called Restream. So where do you go change your microphone inside Restream?
Right. So basically, the way that's done is there's a big cog button, I think, below or somewhere around the like yeah, and then there should be like this audio input thing.
Okay, let's try this one now. How does that one sound?
Yes. Yeah. Speak away.
How's that sound with that one? LG audio. That's just off a monitor.
Yeah, it sounds better. There's still a little bit of crackling, but
Okay,
I mean,
here I'm gonna try my little screen. What do you call it? Webcam?
yeah.
Now, how does that one sound?
Wow. Okay, that's slightly crackling. Maybe it's my earphones.
Shittier even yet, huh?
That is strange. Let me see what's going
It's
on
all
here.
live right now. Isn't that cool? Look at that. Yeah, we're behind this. Everything sounds like shit. Well, I don't know, man. I connect. I connect. I don't know.
Yeah, now it's better. Now I think it's better. I think it's
right.
all right.
You're
So
gonna have
let's.
to edit that part out, man.
Yeah. I'm all.
Leave
It's
that part out of there. I just gave the answer to life. There.
yeah.
He said, Omar said, what's the meaning of life? And I said, 67.
Well, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna switch off my headphones as well, and then we can continue over. So let me just switch that off. Switch off. And
Right out
yeah,
of the river.
let me just throw these away because maybe
Right out of the River Thames. Omar went down to the River
right.
Thames, scooped this out, and then emailed, DHL it over to me. There. You smell that? Some Brexit.
Oh man, don't get me started with Brexit.
I won't. We're dealing with VAT tax over here ourselves. But.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's still a little bit crackling. If there's and it's definitely from your side, unfortunately.
Okay.
But if
let's put this shit on hold. Let's start over. How about that? I'm gonna go get a big mic, plug the mic in, and we'll see if that sounds better. How's that?
Is that okay with you? I mean, I'm just mindful for your time.
But let's just start the whole thing over. All right.
That'll be really cool, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay. I'm gonna close this window, and then go find my Yeti microphone, and I'm gonna plug it in, and we'll try that. All right.
Yeah, man. Thanks. Appreciate that. All right, glorious community. We've just had a bit of a technical difficulty, so we're gonna be back online hard as soon as we get Senor Draplin back with his new mic. So we just need to wait for him to come in. So while that's happening, let me just drop in the thumbnail. Do, 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 do. Hey, what's up, Aaron?
All right, how's that sound on the Yeti?
Oh, wow. That is just beautiful. That is
Really, you can really get in there on that Yeti, huh? Okay.
yeah, you can. Man, thanks a lot for doing that. Thanks for your patience there. I think let me just double check everything on over here.
What for settings on this thing? What should I be putting it on? I mean, is that now? I'm going to do a couple things here real quick, and you tell me how this sounds. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Here's the volume at 2:00. Okay, so at 2:00.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it back to about 10:00, so it's going back. Now,
Yeah.
how does that sound when I speak right there at 10:00?
Yeah, it sounds pretty decent. I think both levels seem pretty decent. It's quite on the high, which is good, and it's not
Okay.
high, it's not breaking. It's not breaking either. So
And then on the back here, what do you want it on? Do you want it for the gain? Right now, it's at 11:00 for the gain. I'm going to put it over. Just check it out. I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to put over to 3:00 on the gain. Hear that on 3:00?
Yeah.
The gain. I'm going to put it back to 11, and now I'm talking there. How's that? Which one?
That's good. Whatever you just did there is good.
Okay. And then on the back, it's a little upside down heart. Should I have it on that?
Yeah, I think the heart means it's a directional. So I think wherever it is right now seems pretty decent. So
all right. Well, then let's start this over. Let's just pretend like we just met.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's
all those these 7 people that were watching, they need to swear a blood oath to secrecy that other lapse and judgment will not go live.
Yeah, in fact, just for the sake of just doing this kickstarted again, I mean, we can skip the pretentiousness question. We got that, we recorded that up, but yeah, I mean, let's just jump into a different question just to kick things off. So yeah, I mean, Aaron, like I've of course, I mean, I've been sort of this is one of few books that I've, by the way, read throughout. There's a handful of books that I have read, especially in the last, let's say, 2 to 3 years. But this is one of them, right? And I think again, it's just because uh, when I've heard you speak, when I've seen your TED Talks, I saw you in Skillshare, it's that rawness that I just enjoyed, and I felt that, you know, I can be a designer and be myself. I don't have to fake to be it, or I don't have to try to prove anyone anything, which is really refreshing. Now, I want to go into the kind of journey that you went through, which is the milestone of success, because right now you might be familiar that you see, you know, what I've seen from your side is that, you know, the little milestones that you've achieved, you've sort of cherished, right? And I think a lot of people today have social media envy. So, you know, through comparison, they just want to keep up with the Joneses, let's say, and it becomes this crazy kind of cycle, and you know, almost so much so that, you know, they look at this giant goal that they have to achieve to become it, right? And that's just very, very intimidating, firstly, but it's just not realistic either. And it all comes, and I truly believe it all comes down to the little successes, right? The little milestones, the little mountains that you climb before you, or the little hills that you climb before you approach the mountain. Yeah. So how did you? I guess the question I want to ask you is, you know, how did you build that? How did you build that into your nature? You know, just kind of being grateful for the little achievements that you've had before the big achievements, let's say.
Well, you don't really sweat the top of the mountain. I mean, I don't know. That sounds cynical. You know, it's like everyone's worried about becoming the biggest thing out there, and what the fuck does that even mean? You know, I mean, like, who wins, or someone who gets to have the most, or the most money, or the most clout, or most numbers? You know, when you get big numbers, you get more bullshit, and that is just the truth of it. So I you know, that's no different in anything. If you're a band and you get more exposure, you know, you have to deal with more, you know, success and more stuff and more pain sometimes too, right? So I'd be careful what you ask for or wish for. You know, remember clearly that, at least just selfishly from my perspective, some of my very favorite designers, they're not about a pursuit of numbers and things and stuff. They're just out making and doing, you know, and doing it, living it, right? And I try to do that, you know, but of course I use my Instagram as a tool to talk about what I'm into, what I'm, you know, propping up, what I'm selling, what I'm thinking about, what I'm, you know, smitten by, or whatever you want to call it. And that's another tool. But, you know, listen, that's not the pursuit here. Wasn't to try to get, you know, a big number. The pursuit was to be free. The pursuit was to make a living. The pursuit was to be creative and enjoy myself along the way, and work hard when, you know, if you call me, that's a job, versus a friend calls me, versus something that I can never even talk about. You know, one of these, you know, larger companies that you wouldn't even know about. You know, I'm not allowed to talk about them. You know, how weird is that? But that's the way the world works. So listen, I saw people climbing the ladders just enough to scare me. It doesn't mean that they're bad. It just freaked me out. You know, they were at each other's throats, and in the end, they're just mean to each other sometimes. And that was just enough. This is 20 years ago, you know, that was just enough for me to kind of step back and say, man, whatever that shit is, I don't care about it. So if that's getting to the top of the ladder, at least in whatever I was looking at, halfway up the ladder might be okay too, you know, and at least you can sleep at night. And, you know, at the very bottom of the ladder, and a lot of metaphors going on here, but at the very bottom of the, you know, that's where I'm at with my buddies. And at least we can be with each other, you know. It's not a pursuit of who has the mostest and the bestest and the coolest. It's a pursuit of just pulling it off, you know, and being okay with that. And that's a different thing than measuring ourselves against all this sort of, you know, bullshit electronic data. Because what's really interesting is when you look at some of these larger accounts, I have a friend who works at Instagram, and when he explains to me, you know, hey, your numbers are your numbers, but if we boil them down, you lose a lot of that stuff because it's like bots and things and stuff. So those are kind of fake connections, you know, and you hold that like, oh, I'm speaking to some city in, you know, the middle of Missouri, you know, with 240,000 people or whatever the number is at right now. No, it's not necessarily true. in the end, I'm still speaking to about 20, which are close friends and people I trust and people I work with and work for, and that if it was 20 people looking at my stuff, or those 20 plus another couple 100,000, that doesn't change. I can't change that because frankly, I couldn't look my girl in the eye or my mom in the eye, So, when you see out there the trappings that go with this stuff, the way the things feel, a lot of it's just kind of bullshit, that kind of influencer look and feel, how they talk to the camera, the pauses, the stops, the record scratches, the fourth wall where they look at the mic and do their funny things, Hey man, who's got time for that shit? If that's how people are making money on this stuff, well, good for them. But I'm not. And I make money when people call me and say, can we hire you for this project, or, whatever it's going to be. And that's just enough for me, So I know it's easy to say that shit when you're, whatever, but perception's a weird thing, man. Your perception of me is not my perception of me. You know what I mean? And I'm pretty open to say, it is just me back here, dealing with all of it. It is just me doing all the billing. It is just me doing all the work. It is me landing the jobs. It is me doing the account management. There isn't really like some big mystery there, and yet, even when I tell them exactly what it takes, it's still, the perception is like, no, there's something happening that we don't know about, and that's not necessarily true. I mean, I tell people exactly how I do this stuff. And, then the question becomes, well, then how do you get all these calls? And it's like, wait a second. I mean, do you want me to give you a play-by-play thing to how to become successful? Because if I have to do that, you're in trouble. Not just you, but someone else taking notes on that. You know where it comes from. It comes from being able to listen, able to bend and compromise sometimes. That's part of design too. Able to work hard, over-exceed. That's another one on the thing. And then be a good human being when you hand off all the work. That's really simple shit, right?
Yeah.
Instead of worrying about creative control and pieces for your portfolio, you worry about getting a paycheck.
Totally. I appreciate all the values, honestly. Like again, it's basing it down to the simplicity. But again, this is without question or doubt that you've achieved a significant portion of what we call success, right? Which is awesome and is great, and people admire what you've built, and from DDC to field notes to everything else, and but the story is very different to today. Of course, the way you did it isn't how most people build their success.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and so I'm curious to understand, like, as you hit those, did you have like that big goal, or so did it just sort of just happen naturally
No. First of all, we didn't even know, what is the goal?
Yeah.
The goal, number one, should be financial freedom.
Yeah.
And I'm close. And what that means, instead of pissing your money away on drinking, on, I don't even know. Big homes, boats, bullshit things, I'm just trying to put it in my life here in Oregon, wherever, something that I might see around me or whatever, no, you try to be frugal.
Yeah.
And you try to be, you don't buy shit you can't afford. It's very simple. And that goes all the way back to when I was flat ass broke, right? And then it goes all the way, back up the mountain to where I'm at now, where it's like, listen, I just want to be comfortable. I don't need a ton of money. I just need to be comfortable. That's all. Want to be. I take care of myself. I've said this 1 trillion times, but it's the truth. My mom and my little sisters and my girl with graphic design, and a couple friends too, I don't need all this.
As far as financial freedom is concerned, I honestly thought that somewhere in these pages you hit that note. I think reading through your book, you the point where you were able to fulfill all your debts and student loans was inspiring for me. And like, I've still got debts to pay. I'm still early in the game, and and so that is a motivator for me to get myself out of that position. But you were diligent and, of course, like responsible enough to make sure you see that through, and I appreciate that.
Well, there's just and the way that you do that, is you have to size up every year of your life.
Yeah.
And if you're only yearning to get bigger and more, that can be problematic. You know, like I knew how to pay off my loans and stuff back when I wasn't making as much, because I understand clearly, like, you got to eat at home. You know, you got your car. You know what I mean? Like I made adjustments in other places so I could go and pay off the scarier ones. You know, and I went without in some respects so I could. You know, I took those loans. You know, this is about responsibility. I took those loans out, and then they choke you the life out of you. But I quickly kind of sized it up and said, okay, if I take all these extra jobs and say yes and amass, money in the bank account, instead of trying to go and get, more trips or more, I don't even know, fun things, I used all of it to pay everything off, all of it. And I did that with graphic design. I'm very proud of that. So, what a kid doesn't understand all these years later, and it gets frustrating, for me, is because it's like, man, you can't boil that shit down into like cute little points on an Instagram title. You know what you see those things,
Yep, totally.
Oh, here I go after the millennials. But no, hey, if that's how they communicate, then they just need to put in 3 little cute things with all the pauses and all the little funny, influencer tricks. You're going to have to work hard, probably work a shitty job. And then when you go home, well, work hard, and I don't like the word hustle, because it's got a connotation of like something slimy, Well, yeah, I mean, call it hustle, call it whatever. No, I went and took advantage of everything that landed in my lap. Some of it wasn't cool. Some of it was horrible. Some of it I got lied to. Some of it was incredible that turned into 10 years of success with one little brand, and it was like snowboarding stuff with my friends, like the same guys would be up on the hill with, were the same guys I was so lucky to work with. That is a giant privilege, right? Yeah. So, you take those moments and then you double down on that stuff because they're good people, right? Versus going for a big buck and then knowing that we'd never sit in the same room, much less, have lunch. You know what I mean? Like there's those relationships too. But when that happens, and I sense that, I just know how to be somewhat of a professional, and be a good worker. They won't hear this side of it. They'll just hear me kind of saying yes and trying to meet the milestones,
Yeah. There's a page somewhere here where, for me, honestly, when it comes to financial freedom, sorry, I'm going to have to mute yourself for this. So when it comes to financial freedom, there's an image that kind of is a defining factor for that. I'll have to find that as we have this chat, but I want to also go into, this is the picture. So I'm just have to flash that in the screen. That right there is financial freedom for me. It's just that idea of being able to work how you want, when you want, and in your own terms. And that to me is the epitome of financial freedom. I want to kind of dive in a little bit further, Aaron, into, again, like, because what you've phenomenally done, again, that's been pivotal for myself, is you've carved out a niche. And you were just speaking about that. You did stuff that you loved in the, in your most hearted passion, which is snowboarding. And a lot of snowboarding, a lot of kind of the snowboarding stuff, whether it's Cole, Snowboarding Magazine, you somehow, it almost seems like you intentionally selected every single client that you work with. And I just need to ask you, man, how does that happen? Is that sort of being surrounded, being surrounded by the right people? Or are you using some kind of ungoverned law of law of attraction there?
Man, I don't know. A lot of those relationships that turned into something good in the 2000s, they go all the way back to when I moved out west, as a young kid, 19 years old. And I knew a person that somehow got my foot in the door somewhere. And then what's interesting is that first little chance that you get to go work on something. If you do a good job, they're going to call you back. So you really have to slay it. That very first glimmer, that first little bit of light, that shines on you. You have to take that and really do something good with it, because people remember that stuff, and that's your opportunity. If you start it by belly aching and being a pain in everybody's ass, they're going to remember that, So that is no different than the jobs that turned into 10 and 12-year jobs, or the job that was just a good 6 weeks, I surrounded myself with a bunch of snowboarders because those are my friends. That's we were up on the hill with. That did get a little claustrophobic, like it often does. I had moved on from that world. But what was interesting is as we were getting older, we were coming off the hill and then making products for people still up on the hill, right? So, that was a language I knew, and I was fluent with that sort of kid, that sort of archetype of this kind of outdoor, fun loving, kind of person going up to the hills and the mountains and stuff, all of it incredibly rare, and privileged. Like that's just not the world I know where I'm from. That world I know, the world I know where I'm from is you work a job and you work hard. It's not necessarily fun, right? So when I got to work for anything close to snowboarding, I just really took it seriously and tried to love it. And, it came from a magazine. The magazine, I came up to Portland. I worked for a bunch of brands at a good size agency. And then it just wasn't for me. So when I went on my own, I had this ability to be really nimble on my own, and take a lot of stuff on and cut out a lot of the red tape and cut out a lot of the pricing and costing that goes with having account managers, things and stuff, right? And people like that. I was direct. I was one phone call away, and I was, in essence, chained to my desk to do the job for them, and people don't forget that stuff. So, you build relationships. Now, what's interesting is one good relationship, they hear that story, and the next guy, quite literally the next desk next to him at this office calls me and says, you want to work on this project? Cole Headwear liked how I worked with my buddy Brad, and then Union Binding Company, my buddy George, they sat in the same room together. One guy was selling headwear, one guy was selling snowboard bindings. Well, those became brothers, and that was 10 and 12 years each. Now, I jumped out of those things because I just had my fill. That was 2003 to 2013 and, 2011 to 2000, whatever it was. Those were great runs. And, there's a younger kid who's a little more interested in the snowboard world than I would be. So then I let those guys kind of take the reins because I was going on to, doing stuff like this or, working for other things, and seeing if I could even take it even farther, more independent, right? Where it's not even about having a retainer.
Yeah.
I guess just to be really clear, if all I could do was have a job, then great. I would be good at my job. I would be a good person to be around. I'd work hard, and I would try to be fair and try to be a good, citizen at the job and all those just basic things. When you get out on your own, you have to do that much more of that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, then you say, okay, I'm on my own. I'm making more money than I made at the studio job. What does this mean? Well, do a great job in that era. Instead of looking so far up the hill or the mountain or whatever the hell to either the spot I'm at right now. Remember, this shit can take a dip too. It's been kind of up and up and up and up and up.
Yeah.
But it can take a dip, and you have to brace yourself for that stuff too. So the fear response out of me along the way was always like, man, this was great. I have a job at an agency. It's clean. There's cool chairs, beautiful people, account managers, things and stuff, titles. We got business cards. I knew how to size up that get everything I need to get out of that. And maybe a little byproduct, be a good worker for them, And I'm really proud of that. Like I'm proud to have been a good worker for this. I worked my ass off. I stayed late when they'd asked me to stay late and whatever else. Well, when you get that, when that releases and it's all on you, well, it's all on you, and you better do good with that, So this has been a natural thing. And, like the book helped. Listen, if I didn't get to make the book, it's okay. You would show people your work on your, online or something. But a lot of people got to see the book, and I got a lot of jobs because of that. But I also had to say no to a lot of things too, because they weren't aligned with my values, or they just weren't aligned with what I was, energy drinks and shit, things I'm just not really kind of down with, So, with all these opportunities, remember, now I'm at this position where people come after me and say, you do you. And that is a very weird thing, because if I say, I'm just not the right fit. I have a list of characters that I send, copy and paste, and say, go check out my friend so-and-so. She's great with this kind of lettering. Go check out this guy. He's great with this kind of whatever that thing is. And I'm very open to going and passing it, up the food chain, off the side of the food chain, whatever, below me, some young kid who's 25 years old, just starting out. Hey man, I had a couple of those too, so it's a hard one to answer, because I think if you're just sort of a good person and work hard, don't piss your money away, you'll be okay in any situation you're in, whatever your goals are. It's got to be careful chasing these things that are sort of
in the ether almost.
Ghosts or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, a lot of this, just in sort of what you just described there, a lot of the stuff that you said kind of slowly merge into the concept that you call inventing your clients. Because obviously you mentioned you're privileged to haven't been around your buddies, and that kind of translated naturally to being able to work on snowboarding stuff and stuff that was aligned with your passions. And I think that almost had like a snowballing effect, like word of mouth, and just that beautiful organic way of just growing your business, which is great. And how
I'll get calls out from people. I'll get calls. Sorry, but this is really a cool phenomenon. Well, I get calls from people saying, I heard you were fun to work with. Would you be interested in trying something in this space? And it's like, of course, this isn't just about working on the things I'm only interested in. I'm a graphic designer, and that means you apply that to all kinds. But what's interesting is they had heard from an experience that they knew another colleague that said, yeah, he got the job done quick, or we love our logo he made us. That stuff really resonates,
and that lives long, right? Has a long life.
If you go thrashing through shit or you turn people off, that goes a lot longer than whatever bullshit logo I made a couple years ago. People don't forget that stuff. So, when I'm on the clock for you, Omar, or I'm on the clock for, whatever, something really, really giant. Well, you got to be a good person. You got to do a good job, because hopefully after this podcast, you say, well, he was easy to talk to and all this other stuff, and we'd recommend him to the next thing or whatever, because that's what continues to happen with just the podcast world. Right. Absolutely. So, you try to be open to these things, but listen, man, I've been in those backstages where people, I hear the bullshit they're saying about, kind of the real talk, and I'm always just kind of like, 2 more drinks, that guy has 2 more drinks, he's going to be on my lap saying, how do you get to do what you get to do, Draplin? Because suddenly, even to the guy who was showing us how cool he was, it isn't all that cool when you feel like you're being stifled. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I tell a story of like, well, shit, man, if I want to work until 5 a.m, I do, because that's the truth. But it means you got to get back up to be on the podcast with Omar, whatever that is. It's like, these are all just small little instances, but, instead of it being this pursuit of, well, I'm the best, there's no sash, there's no award. Who gives a shit about? I remember when I heard you talking about awards, I remember we were laughing when that happened, because we made a press release for the snowboard magazine and said, beating out titles such as, we went and found all the crusty little titles, Cat Fancy, Gun Dog. It was Cat Fancy was a magazine for cats, right? People who love cats. This is, I don't know if it's still around. Gun Dog was a little publication in the Midwest about hunting dogs. No one knew about this shit, but we went and found instead of trying to say he beat out, I don't even know, like car magazines and fashion magazines and sports magazines and celebrity magazines. No, he beat all the shitty ones, because we really felt like we were one of those,
Right.
And we knew how to make fun of ourselves way more than us saying art director of the year. And you know what I said? I mean, this is going to make me sound horrible, but you know what I said in one of my clips? They said, well, what's the coolest thing about being art director of the year? And I told them, I said, well, it's fun. I got to show my mom an award. They said, well, what's the worst thing? And I said, well, this was in like a magazine. And I said, they gave us some money and then taxed the shit out of it, And it's just weird. You know, I mean, my mind only can go to the stuff where it's like, man, you dangle this stuff over us, you get us all excited, you give us this, you know, I think it was $500, and then they took $300 of it in taxes because it was like a gift or it was an award or some kind of shit. And it was just like, oh man, it's just another tax write-off for this larger corporation or just whatever this thing is. Listen, they're all just little checks along the way of like, I don't want to be a part of that world. This is not about awards and titles and who gets to have the most numbers. It's about being able to look yourself in the mirror and say, I worked hard and I did a good job. You know, I don't do everything
that's
right.
Fulfillment. That's ultimate fulfillment.
I don't do everything right, but I'm trying. I'm trying to be, you know, sort of aware of what this is.
Accepting vulnerability, like being vulnerable. Yeah, right.
I would rather be able to tell somebody, we don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. You know, me. I don't even have. Right? Well, I you know, like I've worked on bigger projects where I had to put together a team of kids, and then said like, we just don't. This is getting away from us. You know, we don't really know if we're the right fit for you guys. You know, you asked us to assemble a team, we did, and you know, we're just not digging the stuff. Maybe I'm just not the right person, and we're not the right team. You know, what those couple instances, or on the phone with someone and say, listen, you knew what you know what I'm capable of doing, and yet you're pushing me out to these limits where it's like, I mean, we'll get there, but I've already, you know, if you didn't see why you called me in the first couple of rounds, you're never going to see it. And I'll back off of that stuff, you know. And sometimes you just give all the money back, you know, the half down, just give it back and say, it's not the right fit, you know. I'm not going to take you to court. I'm not going to take you to something. I'm not going to talk bad. No, I'm not the right fit. And it's a nice way of saying you couldn't make a decision, dipshit. You know, it's a nicer way of saying, I'll just remove myself. I don't want to waste any more time on this. You know, at what point do you get mad at me? That's happened a couple times. And I just kind of stood up for myself and said, go look at the emails. You lost your, you know, whatever that is. You know, I keep track of all that shit, you know, and that's a fun tool when someone's, you know, kind of going, whoa, this, that. And I said, no, we'll go look at the transcript. Yeah, and totally. You know, and the guy looked like a tool.
Well, I've had that. You know, I know how diligent you're with email just from a back-to-back communication. So that's a fact there. Well, I have to steer this discussion more towards the inventing, you know, the inventing your clients piece, because you know, a lot of our audience are sort of in this entrepreneurship game, right? Mm-hmm. And they're up and coming, they're aspiring, or they're in the game. They've been in the game for a while, but what's interesting again about your journey is that you know, you literally, and this is in your own words, invented your own clients in the sense that you did Snowboard Mag with your buddies, right? You then created field notes, and then that led to, of course, the DDC pop-up shop, right? And I mean, you never sort of defined it per se, but would you say inventing your clients is starting those product lines essentially? Is that what you define it as? Yeah. And what kind of motivated you to go ahead and do that? I mean, you're probably doing client work at the time, but you know what made you
still am.
Do this?
I mean, it's not a filter, you know, where you're like, I'm only going to do this kind of thing. You know, a week ago, I worked for an agency that were old friends that called and said, hey, here's a job. It's a quick turn. Can you do this? And it was like, it's money. You know, of course I can do that. You know, I mean, are you sure you want me to work on this kind of spicy little project? You know, like, aren't I kind of old for this? And the guy was like, well, the last kid we had try to work on it delivered us a bunch of garbage, you know? So it was like, okay, well, here we go. And it doesn't matter if I'm 47 years old. My buddy who's hiring me is 47 years old. You know, it's, in the end, we're selling it to a client, you know, their client, you know, a project. So, you know, to try to answer that, it's like, you know, as you get older, you know, we worked for a snowboarding magazine, and what you realize is the people who are allowed to have a magazine are publishers, and publishers have resources and buildings and walls and ceilings and stuff, you know, and then they have, you know, a bank account that allows you to, you know, pay for the printing, and then they have a budget to hire a bunch of people to write the stuff. And what you come to realize is like, man, we could do this ourselves. We're already doing it. Someone else is just bankrolling it, right? So that was really exciting, at least for that one snowboarding magazine, because it was risky because there was no guarantee that those guys were even going to make money, my friends who started the magazine. And I remember I kind of put my foot down and said, I'm not rolling the dice on this stuff. You guys are going to pay me, and I'm going to work hard and make this vessel for you, but I'm not rolling the dice. If you guys are comfortable with rolling the dice, that's on you. And they paid me. I mean, we would sell ads and I would get paid from that, right? Every month, because I would spend, 10 days a month, working with these guys, whatever. And it was a nice, fair paycheck. But the thing is like, if we didn't stick our necks out there, we wouldn't have known that you actually could go and do that. And what that showed me was like, in the end, it was exciting because a lot of people told us, you're not going to be able to do this. You know this, right? You're not going to be able to do this. And we defied that. And then listen, it's snowboarding. We try to make a good product, an honest product, have good photography there was no budget, So a lot of people were giving stuff for free or just exposure or whatever, and I just couldn't roll the dice even at that point and say, you guys, I just want, a piece of this thing. In the end, everyone got paid back. But if I'm going to give my time to that, they have to figure out a way to structure that thing. So what I'm saying is, even with us inventing our stuff, I still kind of stood up for myself in that process and said, hey, I know this is risky, but it was really rewarding because we saw other guys get paid and make some money, get their payment back. But beyond that, inspire a bunch of snowboarders to go start their own stuff, or anything for that matter, not just snowboarding, But see, that opened the door for me to like not be afraid of like field notes. Yeah. And to say like, wow, like I wasn't even thinking about it as starting a business, man. I mean, it was just more like, I just want to make my own. I just want to make my own. I use these things all day long. Why couldn't I just make my own? Well, they're always right here. It's like, I was, you're on that list today.
I'm sorry. Can I just pause you for a second? Is there like a bunch of different designs that are available, like on your desk? Like, is there more versions of field notes around you?
Well, there's the one that I was working on up until about, a week ago. So that would be the better part of January. And,
right.
There's stuff in there. There's like, I guess I can show a couple things. So I was working on that Biden bold font. I'm sketching on things and goodies and stuff and things.
That looks fun.
Hey man, I come up with sketches here, and then I go and build them out. In Illustrator. It's pretty simple. Working on a website, and we were just talking through little X out things. When I found out I'm building a new website for myself, and the guy was like, you can build anything you want to put up in the corner, how to X out a window. Oh. So I built him, sent him over in Illustrator, and he implemented it across the whole damn thing. And he's the code guy, and I'm the guy helping build this stuff. I didn't even know. I thought you had to use the package stuff. That's called UX, UI, whatever. I know, but see, I don't even mess with that shit. So listen, all around me are just like little bits and bobs and goodies and things and stuff. And I keep it pretty clean. Yeah, I have a thing of water at all times. I have a couple field notes. I've got whatever that's
field note covers, like just the variety of it's pretty cool that a business model comes from something so simple, like such a basic product, but it's just like, again, one of your essentials that you need to have in the field, right? And there's nothing better than that pen to paper feeling. Like,
well, I've always been I've always had like a shirt on with a collar, and then you have like a pocket. Yeah. So I've always had this right here, and that's what farmers and shit do where I'm from. But I'm certainly not. I'm nothing even close to a farmer. But I always had a pocket with a shirt, and the shit went right there with my pencil and maybe your wallet or whatever, your stuff, right? Yeah. Well, in the age of sweatshirts and sweatpants and the pandemic here, I'm still a 5.5 by 3.5 inch little book kind of guy. You can see here. I'm gonna reach up here. This is last year.
Ooh, yeah, man. I'll check out those covers. They look pretty cool.
There's stuff that's kind of like our latest release.
Yeah.
And then there's some other weirdo things that come in and out of the fray, but nevertheless, that's what a year looks like right there. Now, why I keep these within reaching distances, because if I still have a project that's 3 months old, chances are there's sketches that would have come up, back in October, right? So
how often do those the field notes go through a refresh? Because I see tons of different covers on them.
2 to 3 weeks, sometimes a month. It just depends on where the projects are at. If I'm doing a lot of sketching, it might be 3 days. Right. So just blast through a bunch of stuff, through a lot of pages. But for the most part, what I do is it's more of like making a list. today I've got this, I've got that, I've got this, and make a list, check it all off, keep track of all the stuff. Because usually if you get to the end of the day and it's like 14 things, that's a lot of shit you got done. It might have been another round of a project. It might have been, solving the VAT tax, which we have to kind of solve today for the UK, and go fill out some paperwork with Her Majesty's Royal, whatever the hell, tax collector or some shit. So, because we sell stuff to the UK, and there's some, some mysteries and intricacies with that, but that's on my list. It's on my list. And, none of this stuff is like, going to get you in trouble, but the more I can get off that list, the freer I feel,
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of things dragging me, when you invent your stuff, you got to be careful with that because it can become a real thing. Field Notes is a real thing run by adults in Chicago, and there's needs, and they hit me up, and I have to work on stuff. And, a lot of those times I have to drop everything I'm doing to make sure I get what Jim needs done from me, and I do it because they run that beautiful thing back in Chicago. I'm not there. I'm in Portland, right?
Yeah. Of course.
So, I evangelize the stuff everywhere all over the world, but, and I use the stuff hourly, but you have to be careful what you ask
for it.
Yeah. Well, you just have to be careful because some of these things like the Skillshare has been very successful.
Yeah.
And to everyone who's watched it, thank you so much. It's been great, but they're very serious about their next film, the next one that we're going to be filming. I think it's in March.
Right.
And, it's very serious. So when those guys start to kind of, rev me up and say, hey, carve out the time, we got to do the outline, we got to do all the stuff. There's a little bit of the behind the scenes, but it's a business, and it's certainly not sort of just half-assed. We really think through how to get to the right amount of kids and be accessible and and make it fun, try to make it, something that, it's like, I don't know how to say it. It's like, we're not going to reinvent anything, but I think what we can do is just sort of make a good little product that doesn't take itself too seriously. That's just Skillshare. Now, all I'm getting at here is when you start inventing these things, Field Notes, all the DDC merch, working on these skills. I didn't invent Skillshare, but no, they came after me and I said, well, here's my angle on it. What do you think? It became a thing. All the way down the line. There's just a lot of stuff, and now I have to really manage all those things day to day, and yet still do client work when the clients call and it's a fun job, So,
yeah, I'm sort of afraid to ask about what your schedule looks like and how you manage time, but let's not go there. I again, just slightly.
It's just how much can you pack in a day? That's it.
Fair enough. But yeah,
or even this, whatever you promised, nail it first.
Nail that first. Prioritize promises.
Yeah, don't piss anyone off that's giving you a paycheck.
Yeah.
If they tell you to have it there Friday morning, have it there Friday morning, and play. Don't go into stuff having to play defense. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
If you tell them Friday morning, show up guns blazing Friday morning. Mm-hmm. But if you call them Friday morning and say, we need until noon, or we need until end of day, or we need until Monday, they'll use it against you.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sometimes I show shit early just to fuck with them a little bit, Sorry with the language.
That's really cool. With Field Notes, like, how did it blow up? Like, at what point did it start going a bit mainstream? Because look, this is just my sort of limited experience of how I discovered you was through TEDx, and then that kind of trickled into Skillshare, and then trickled in. There was like a knock-on effect, and started discovering you all over the place. But I knew that by the time I discovered you, you already have this traction with Field Notes. And just for our audience out there, is trying to make it as an entrepreneur, selling products, selling stuff that they love, and you sell it and you love it, right? You it's truly it's passion driven. Like, where did those initial stages happen? Like, what's the steps and the processes there to make it move?
Well, to talk about Field Notes, I have to be very, very clear. If I didn't meet Jim Coudal, this thing might just be something that's like what I call like a shoebox project. It's like you just have a shoebox all around at all times. And if you lived here, Omar, I'd say, hey, take a couple,
Yeah.
And I have to say, I have a lot of things like that. And it's okay. You know, we still sell some stuff, but Jim Kudal saw what it could be. And, you know, Jim's got 10 years on me. You know, he's an entrepreneur himself. He's been through this. He's a, you know, big South by Southwest speaker back in the day. He knows a lot of those tech people. And beyond that, he also knows the human side of all that stuff. You know, guys that would make software to make interaction better between just regular old people, not necessarily more money, you know, like really kind of cool stuff like that. He knew that crowd too. So there was like a psychology element to him, how to handle me, how to talk about our brand. But what he saw was that these things can be, first of all, they're very functionable, you know, like, you know, they're functional in a way where I use them because I have to. That's what keeps me in line. And yet people forget all the ways that they sort of, you know, can work for them, you know? So we kind of are a reminder that like, hey, good luck making that grocery list on your phone. It's just not the same as thinking it through and kind of going down the line and looking at your cupboard and writing on, you know, that kind of stuff. It's like, we forget that shit because now there's an app called, that you guys are probably working on right now, called grocer.com or some shit. So listen, you know, GRCCER, you know, I don't know, no E's or whatever. Well, no vowels, you know, Jim saw it, and frankly, I did not. It's not me that blew it up. It's Jim and the gang. You know, they built a website, they built a plan. I built things for that plan, and we grew this thing fairly quickly. And you know, we would be on NPR talking about it, and that was right around the time when the iPhone came out. You know, 2007, 8, etc. And we were doing this thing, so there was a reaction to this incredible world that the iPhone was going to offer, right? There was a reaction, and yet people were like kind of pulling back. And there's, you know, there was counterpoints to like, everything is going to be just on a screen now. Remember, everything's just going to be on a screen. These things called iPads. What about paper? Well, that, you know, the Kindle and stuff. And it's like, man, Kindles are cool, but reading on your phone this big, it's just not very fun. You know, there's something about turning a page, that tactile quality. So Jim tapped into that. And I will forever be thankful, because not only did he help me organize this thing and understand that it was something that needed to be, that could be organized and put out into the world, but, you know, he did it and he was cool along the way. You know what I mean? Like, you know, he's like an older brother to me. I would give my life for that guy. He's been amazing to me. He's made us all money, but it's not anything that crazy. That's like another misnomer. It's like this big successful thing. No, you know what it is? It's a creative vessel that allows those guys to make movies, make fun decisions, use cool paper, use cool processes, and not have some budget asshole up against us, you know, saying no, 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 and no. We hear some no's sometimes, but it comes from us. It comes from us. You know, it doesn't come from some board. We just kind of knock our heads together and say, do we have it in the bank for that? We do. Let's do it. All right, cool. Is it a little risky? It is. Who cares? 2019 was great. 2020 was a little lower, but hey, we're going to come back swinging 2021. I mean, you know, 2021, you know, so that kind of immediacy was awesome to see, you know, like how with a couple quick decisions from Jim, this thing could go just sort of explode. But I have to give credit where credit's due. You know, I sometimes become the face of this thing because I'm in some article or something, but I'll forever be thankful to my buddy Jim Kudal in Chicago, Michelle Seiler, Brian Bedell, and all the crew there, because they're really the people that really made this thing kind of flourish. And, you know, we're coming up on our 50th set, so we're working on that right now.
Yeah, man. I mean, that it's awesome to, I guess, have you've been lucky to have an awesome partner, which it seems, and of course you being the creative thought leader behind it, and of course him being the entrepreneur. I think that match coming together just makes total sense.
Even there, just for further clarification, those guys come up with ideas all the time, and then really they just kind of plug me in and say, we need you for this. Like, it's like Jim is like the puppet master. He knows how to like
He's like the orchestrator. It would make sense. Yeah. I'm kind of in a similar partnership myself. Like, we've got my partner is a bit more senior to me. He's more of a serial entrepreneur type, and he kind of orchestrates the business side of things and make sure things keep moving. And I appreciate that. I totally appreciate having a great partner can that you can rely on, and is really refreshing. Yeah. Man, look, we're coming towards the end of the session, and I want to kind of end it on just a couple of last questions. especially for our audience, because look, ultimately, like knowing you and following your stuff on Skillshare, again, your creative process is raw and it's very kind of almost traditional, I'd say, which is brilliant. But I mean, I would say it's like, again, pen to paper, mouse to pixel, right? And for me, or for moving into what's the foreseeable future, you can see a lot of graphic AI technology and simplified graphic software is being developed. All these kind of easy to use software are making the creative industry more kind of accessible, but also automated to some extent. So when we think about, when you think about AI, what do you feel the role of the designer is for the future? And have you thought about that?
Not really. I mean, I hear the things, but hey, who made the logo on your T-shirt?
That was my friend, my buddy, actually.
Okay, I mean, it's a nice logo. So your buddy made that thing for you, and hopefully that was a good experience.
It required a mind, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then, I mean, or you can go hire a robot to do it. I mean, hey, I get it. If there's going to be these sort of like automation things coming up that make our lives easier, well, cool. I mean, I can get on a phone, a Zoom chat with my mom and just sit and bullshit back in Michigan. That's pretty cool. I wish I was sitting there with her, but that made my life better, in that respect. I mean, especially during this pandemic where we can sit and talk and still connect and, stay really connected. But, 3,000 miles apart. It's very kind of surreal. But hey, I honestly, I just don't really know. I've seen a couple things that were generated, like you could just tell it was generated by a machine, be it some prose or lyrics. And it just misses the nuance, the humanity, the vulnerability that we all possess, and you can see it, you can smell it, because we're humans and we know how to track that shit down, and yet we know how to be completely oblivious to it at the same time too. You know what I mean? It's like a weird bit of a fallacy, like you're infallible. Is that the word? We're flawed, man. We're flawed. And there's something about, a connection to like you hiring me or you hiring your buddy and saying, hey, help us get this thing done. And you see that process go out in front of you. Now check it out. If that's gone in 5 or 7 years, I don't think it will be, or in 10 years. But if it is, this is going to sound weird. So be it. I'm not going to be doing this shit anymore. I'm working hard now, hopefully to build a coast in the next 3 to 5, 6, 7 years. I saved all my money. This isn't about, this is the time to earn, kind of. I had a guy tell me at the start of my 30s, like, that's the time to earn. Make it an adventure, but that's your time to earn. You're going to have the most energy and, be smart with that stuff and build something that you can coast on later. And I hope I did,
Yeah.
I tried.
Yeah, I think that's helpful, man, because you couldn't have put it better. Like, I feel the same way. I think ultimately that human touch is irreplaceable, and that human connection of just knocking heads together with your buddy. We spent a weekend and a half just going through this logo and you just enjoyed the process, and that you can't.
That should be something. Yeah. It's like it's like giving birth or something. I don't know if you have children. I don't have children, but I have heard the story of like what it's like to, and I've heard the story of what it's like to make a baby. Now there's a fun story, but what it's like to watch that baby grow inside somebody, and what that mom goes through, and all the way then the baby's born, and the magic and the beauty there. Like, hey, that's kind of what making a logo should sort of be, just a smidge like too.
Yeah.
You watch that thing be born with your DNA and your friend's DNA and the company's ideas and all that stuff being in the mix. And that's like a really special thing. Like, why can't that be a cool thing? That's why I have a hard time when I hear this sort of adversarial bullshit about like, people saying, oh, the client was horrible to us and stuff. It was like, did you show them cool stuff? Because if you didn't, they might have sensed it. I always bring it back to us. It's our job to provide good stuff to you guys, or whatever for that matter.
Yeah.
It's not their job to steer it. It's our job to show up with this good stuff. Right. They'll love you when you do that. So, hey, what's interesting is with everything becoming more and more automated, how just kind of easier it is just to say, you know what, fuck it. One more set of notifications. Who gives a shit? I'm letting it go. I'm going to get on the phone and just call this guy. Why spend 3 days and 19 emails to figure out what time to go and talk to each other? That's insane. Now, that might sound a little boomery or whatever you want to call it. My parents were baby boomers, right?
Right.
You know, I might sound a little, you know, Gen X or whatever the hell, or old to the young little robots listening to this damn thing. But hey, man, that shit's embarrassing. We're wasting time, and that's supposed to be automated to the point where it gets you there faster, and people can't even figure out time to talk to each other. It's like, how about I just give you my phone number, call me up, and we'll sit and bullshit, you know, and I'll get your job done. I mean, I know that sounds old-fashioned, but you have to understand that's
true. It's true. Yeah.
Well, it's me being cynical after taking the bait on all the new tech and trying to work with it and stay up to date with it, and then being bit by it. That hurts.
It is a waste of time. You're totally right. I mean, like, just take Netflix, for example. I go back to, you know, when I was a kid, and, you know, just the process of renting a movie. You go into the store, you have to spend, because that movie you rent is going to be your D movie for the entire week, because if you go past the second day, you got to pay an extra fee for it. And versus now, everything's available, and you spend literally, me and my wife will sit there and spend 45 minutes just to pick a movie, versus the process of just going into the store, enjoying that, you know, just being grateful to pick.
Or how about this? I mean, I don't know if you guys have Blockbuster Video in the UK. Did you guys ever have those there, Blockbuster?
Yeah, but they all shut down. Yeah, of course we did.
Sure. Well, we used to joke, you know, this is only 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We'd go in there, before you know it, an hour's burnt up walking around the damn place trying to find stuff. And it was embarrassing, because it was like, when you finally landed on something, they just tasted that much better when you got home.
That's
hey,
right.
Man, last night I spent a half hour just trying to find something to watch, and that's where I just turned it off and I went to bed, because I was like, you know what? They're feeding this stuff to you, and we're kind of becoming conditioned by it, you know. And it's like, man, I'll just follow my little documentary blogs and be excited about when something's coming, and then get burnt. Like you get burnt. I got burnt last week by a movie. I'm a fan of Denzel Washington, and I got burnt with his new movie called The Little Things. And just for everyone listening, it sucks. So just go past it. But I had heard about it, and I had, you know, saw it on some awards or so, I don't know, some, you know, a couple months ago, and they said, oh, this is going to be a good one that's coming. So you get excited, and then it comes out, and you're all excited to watch it, and it's a dud. You know, it's all part of the process, you know. And it's like, you know, that to me felt more natural than knowing every single trailer, every single whatever. Sometimes you strike out, you know what I mean? Like, that's all part of the deal. Sometimes you go to the video store, you pick something up, it doesn't sound like the record, same sort of shit. You know, you look at the record cover and go, "Ooh, this is great," and then you don't like it. Well, you can sell it to a buddy, or you can trade it, or you can do something else with it. You know, sometimes you strike out. But, you know, if everything is automated down to where, like, I mean, just to sound like completely like off the rails, my girl is really trying to get me into Spotify. Well, that's not a new story. But there's just too much at your fingertips, if that makes sense. It's overwhelming to me, because I don't need to have 1,000 new records. It's hard enough to have 10 new records to learn to love. You know what I mean? Like, physically behind me to get up and play them and enjoy them and learn them. You know, what happens when you have 10,000? That's just too much. And what you're going to do is you're just going to waffle around in there, you know, well, looking for videos to rent. You know what I mean? You're just going to be scrolling through shit. I've already experienced it. So, you know, hey, I know what I like. I know how to enjoy it. And if that's kind of an old way of doing it, well, then all right, you know. And yet, you know, we try to be new in the way we think about the world and how we vote, you know, and how we, you know, try to push that piece of shit Don Trump right out of that office. And, you know, I know they're not going to quite impeach him, but he did get impeached for the second time. I just hope they convict his ass, because what is that? What message does that send to the next wave of these authoritarian dipshits? You know, I don't know. But he's gone, and good riddance. So, you know, I hold on to things that work for me, and they might be a little prehistoric, but we do try to, you know, challenge our minds to go to places that, you know, I don't know, try to be more accepting of the world around us, and and all sorts of different people. I live in Portland, Oregon, man. Liberal bubble, and it's pretty cool here. I gotta tell you, people are nice, and shit, and
Yeah, I can imagine.
yeah.
I mean, I've heard a lot about it.
You're in London?
Yeah, we're in London. We're based in London, but our team's all over the place. So, I mean,
where are you from? I'm trying to pick up this accent.
Honestly, I've got some kind of universal accent because I was born and raised in Spain, and then moved to London. I'm originally from Sri Lanka, so there's a whole lot going on there.
Cool, man. Are you fluent in all those languages?
Sort of. Yeah. I mean, I'm fluent in, like, I'm at least spoken Spanish. I'm pretty good at it. It's just been a long time since I've lived in Spain, and then the other language, Tamil, I'm just a bit iffy on. But yeah, I mean,
wow.
it's rich, man. There's a lot of I guess
good for you, man. I think it's awesome. I'm from Michigan. Go figure.
That's awesome, man. But man, it's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast, and it's just been really, really great to connect with you. I'm just, like, for me, it's just almost like a dream come true to have you on the Path to Glory. Honestly, because like I said, man, like, this is one of the few books that I did buy in the last 3 years. Within a small stack of books that I've had anyway, and really inspired by it, and I think just to end the podcast, one of the things that kind of lives inside me that you said in your book, the kind of seed that has grown, and you've touched on this throughout this entire discussion, is the whole stick it to the man moment that you had when it was very subtle, but you almost had this kind of thing where obviously, like, I have to say, man, do I cherish stick it to the man moments? Like, in the sense that, that invitation to challenge where someone's like, you're not going to make it through, you can't do it. You can make it happen. And when you guys got together with your buddies and started Snowboard Magazine, and you had that kind of attitude from the big boys, but you still went with it. And I know it's not, that attitude, the stick it to the man sort of attitude is not necessarily the top of your reasons in your list of whys. But it is it's a weird byproduct. It's a weird byproduct. Exactly. It is. It's like a bonus,
it's
right?
Something that snuck up on us that was like, holy shit, we did this.
Yeah.
We did this. They told us no. It wasn't about us saying yes louder. No, we just went and did it.
Yeah.
It's a really liberating thing, because it's not necessarily, there's a lot of moments like this, sure, in your life, but really it's only a couple. There's really only a couple that teach you something and that you can hold on to, and hopefully they're healthy, and you don't go chasing them, because if you get success in some of those, like, I remember, like, a friend walking out on a job. It's an effective tactic to tell someone to kind of go to hell and just storm out of the job. Feels good in the moment. It's empowering. You're standing up for yourself, whatever you want to call it. But I got to tell you, the downside to that is a lot deeper. People don't forget that shit. So that wasn't necessarily a sticking it to the man. It's more like when people come up to me, and kind of say like, I thought your brand was kind of bullshit. My kids want your stuff now. And I just kind of say, listen, I'm not sticking it to you. I'm as surprised as you are. So I need to be a good little steward of that privilege and make fun shit. When people come to me and say, man, I didn't even know that was you behind that. That's like a fun compliment to me, because they know the stuff about me. But if I can trick them and they just enjoy the stuff, and it's just a fun form to look at, like the things behind you on the wall. Listen, you know who buys that stuff, man? It's not necessarily like cool designers. It's moms to put them inside a nursery with babies.
That's insane. I wouldn't have guessed that. I just wouldn't have guessed that.
I know, and those are my favorite. So check it out. That's a sticking it to the man for the poster scene. Because I've had these guys call me and tell me, that shit's not going to sell, Draplin. You need to have monsters on it and rock and roll and stuff. And I said, I don't give a shit. I'm selling these to moms who put them in nurseries. That's enough for me, So
yeah, I mean, I have to say, my son came in here as soon as I put those up, and he was just like he went into a trance. Yeah,
How old's he? How old's your son?
He's just turned 2. Oh, well, he's 2.5, almost 2.5 now.
He's a little baby. Cool. Enjoy that. Congrats to you guys, man.
Yeah,
Congrats.
thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate
You gotta
that.
send me a photo now to see the little lady and the little baby and all you guys. You gotta show me some proof, man.
Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. And I want to be mindful of your time, man. Thanks so much for being with us. And yeah, man, we'll hopefully have more discussions in the future, and we'll stay in touch, man. Thanks a lot for being here.
Well, pre-pandemic, my buddy was setting up stuff for this last fall, and we were going to be coming over to the UK and doing workshops and all kinds of cool shit. And we were going to rent a van for the day and go junking and all kinds of cool stuff. And kids could buy a seat in that and go junking with the DDC. And I don't know if it's the same in the UK.
Yeah.
Go get some Cadbury eggs or something on the street corner. I don't know what the hell you guys do. But, all that was put on hold. So when we come back, and you see that stuff show up on my Instagram, you come and be my guest, man. You come hang out.
I'll be there, honestly.
We'll put you right in the front row of the damn thing and in the splash section with all the spit, and all the debris and hair and dander and shit. All right?
That's exactly where I want to be. So perfect.
All right. Well, take care. And
you too,
all
man.
right.
Take care.